Honestly, it's been a lot of nonsense. I think in my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base. We had her face on a serious matter that happened in this world, and it's unacceptable, honestly. And there's no place for it, and we've been professional throughout the whole entire thing, but I've never been called the things that I've been called on social media. And
who doesn't like you because you're a whiny victim 24/7? And we all know what this really is. It's an attack on Caitlin Clark.
After being suspended for attacking Caitlin Clark in a bigoted manner, Alyssa Thomas loses it all. She's having a tantrum now, acting as though the entire league wronged her. This season, I have talked to Indiana Fever supporters and purchased enormous larges. No one is speaking in a racist manner. It couldn't have come at a worse time. Her Connecticut Sun contract was going to expire soon. However, she was barred for the full 2025 season because she insisted on a more spectacular exit. Since Alyssa's actions were becoming out of control, it's actually a comfort to see that the league is finally paying attention for once. I've never had to deal with anything like this. Do you know why? Because prior to Caitlin Clark, nobody gave a damn about your league. There were no rival supporters. You hardly have any supporters at home. She is, of course, refusing to acknowledge it. She's now claiming that her remarks were misinterpreted and that she didn't mean them. But the truth is that she branded you and everyone else who supported Clark an obvious racist. But specifically, what did Alyssa say that was inappropriate? Why did the league wait until this long to act at all? What was Caitlin Clark's response to all of this chaos? Now let's get that straight. Racism of any type has no place here. Not that I'm calling everyone a racist. I won't be phoning most people. You know who the hell you are, though, among the few who are. Please calm down. Encourage Caitlin Clark because you understand that by acting in that manner, you are tarnishing her reputation due to your affiliation with her. All of it transpired on that one unforgettable day when Alyssa Thomas lost all composure following the Connecticut Sun's elimination from the playoffs. However, she did something that no one could have predicted rather than taking responsibility for her performance or even just accepting the team's early demise. Caitlin Clark was drawn into her predicament by her. In any case, the question is, what's wrong? She is not just an incredible talent, but also an even better person. It so happens that Caitlin Clark and I had an event together. I find her to be amazing. You don't have to behave that way, especially if your fan following is your representation of her. Talk about the best kind of deflection. I mean, rather than accept responsibility, she attempted to shift the focus of the story to race by calling out Clark supporters as bigoted. We had been discussing the failure of the team, and then we had been discussing Alyssa's strange attempt to place the responsibility on someone who wasn't even there, possibly as a result. Because she isn't a member of the LGBTQ squad, she will encounter some bigotry from black players and some animosity from lesbian players. However, how was it that Alyssa took that step? She launched into a full-fledged tirade, alleging that Clark's supporters were bigots who wanted to ruin her reputation. Yes, as like Caitlin possesses some kind of superpower that allows her to control the thoughts of everyone who is supporting her. They are psychopaths, these individuals. These folks seem to be non-existent. These are persistent internet users. They're not even always trolls. These folks spend a lot of time online. First then, she maintained that Clark's quiet amounted to endorsement of this fictitious bigotry. She seemed to be attempting to impose a completely invented story on a player who was most likely unaware of this. Here's the problem, though. That was not how anyone, nobody at all, viewed it. Alyssa was the only one who believed that this was a serious racial issue. Before Caitlin Clark, 200,000 or 300,000 people were watching your games. Playoff contest. Now that people have arrived, you are coping with the same issues that everyone else is coping with on social media. In actuality, her entire breakdown was just a pitiful attempt to hide her own shortcomings. She wanted a scapegoat since she couldn't bear how poorly her season ended. Rather of considering what went wrong in her game, she attempted to make Clark appear the bad guy and portray herself as the victim. Really, though, who makes that move? There is an ongoing assault on your lunch ticket. The entire season has included shady plays. It would be like alleging the scoreboard was rigged against you after missing every shot in a game. The experts, however, didn't buy it. Critics such as Jason Whitlock and Stephen Smith criticized her actions on live television, seeing them as a desperate attempt to remain relevant. They also weren't in error. Alyssa wasn't merely sidestepping. In an attempt to divert everyone's attention from the fact that her season ended in flames, she was calling out for attention. never had to deal with anything like this. Do you know why? Because prior to Caitlin Clark, nobody gave a damn about your league. There were no rival supporters. You hardly have any supporters at home. Rumors of her suspension quickly began to circulate. People were beginning to wonder if Alyssa was really worth all the problems she was creating, and the league wasn't going to stand by and take this lightly. She may be a passable player, but when your personal drama takes precedence over your skill on the court, you have a major issue. The WNBA had to intervene because there would be repercussions if unfounded allegations were made that may damage the league's reputation. This season, I have talked to Indiana Fever supporters and purchased enormous larges. No one is speaking in a racist manner. It was therefore practically merely a formality when the WNBA eventually made the announcement of her suspension. There is no one else to blame for her actions. She brought it upon herself. She got herself into this mess with her own words and deeds. Losing a game is one thing, but losing a significant portion of your fan base, your career prospects, and your credibility all at once, that is an absolute catastrophe. After this outburst, everyone is now questioning if Alyssa Thomas will ever play in the league. For she will have a long way to go before she can regain even a modicum of respect. On Twitter, you have 14,000 followers. Baby girl, that's not much of an audience. You're not catching many stray animals. The funniest part is right here. Caitlin Clark was spared from having to do any work at all. Alyssa was busy virtually digging her own grave, while Clark was just concentrating on her game and letting her abilities speak for itself. Her race did not cause her supporters to come together. They took action because she was the victim of unjust charges made by someone. Alyssa misinterpreted the room entirely. It wasn't racism that caused the response. It was because she stepped over a boundary unrelated to her race. Whether it's this league checking or them checking their fans, something has to be done. There's no time left for it. Perhaps you recall the intense game that took place on September 15th, 2024, between the Indiana Fever and the Connecticut Sun. By now, tensions had reached a record high. However, Alyssa Thomas made the unfortunate decision to escalate the situation to a completely new level. She slapped Caitlin Clark with a screen out of the blue that felt less like a calculated move and more like a cheap shot from the middle of the wrestling ring. We're suddenly fairly close after Seattle. This has been the closest it has been for the whole second quarter 44. We're talking about a vicious elbow to the chest blow that sent Clark sprawling to the ground and stunned everyone in the arena. And you know what, referees? They did not even bother to go over the play for a possible flagrant. They just whistled it off as an offensive foul and continued. Really, folks, how can you look at something so offensive and not even think about looking at it again? The crowd were furious and wondered if the officials were also watching the same game as us. No foul call was made. Is it a flagrant that there are no referees interrupting the game? Not at all. Everyone simply went on. There was a frenzy among WNBA players. Why wasn't anything that harmful receiving the appropriate punishment? When earlier footage was unearthed, the results were much more damning. Previously, Alyssa Thomas had pursued Clark on other occasions. Rather, a plethora of videos featuring her shoving her, elbowing her, and generally doing anything but marking the court with a Clark-free zone were available. Supporters saw that Clark was the target of these blows at all times. You can't stand us even for a moment. Let's speak honestly. Racism is unacceptable to 99.9% of people worldwide. Let's speak honestly. Let's speak honestly. However, the issue is that hundreds, perhaps a couple 100 million people, still make about 0.1% of the world's population. That's the issue. That's the whole issue with this. And like that, a single infraction sparked a national conversation. Soon, many were denouncing it as a racist attack and asserting that Thomas was singled out for reasons unrelated to the game when he attacked Clark. To be honest, Caitlin Clark has been the league's breakthrough star and has faced criticism as well as praise. But now that Thomas's actions were being painted as driven by race, the entire league found itself in the public eye. Because of her standing, was Alyssa Thomas being protected by the WNBA? Were they ignoring the situation in order to prevent further explosions? This time, the fans weren't going to accept it. I think Indiana has an amazing fan base, which is why I love traveling there to attend games. But you must remain silent. You must remain silent. That's going to be the end of it. And when the backlash comes, what does Alyssa do? Does she offer an apology? Does she give in? Nope, she goes all in, acting as though she's the one who's being wronged in this situation, and goes on this strange tirade in a post-game interview on September 17th. She actually had the audacity to accuse Clark of racism and claim that her silence on the subject demonstrated her approval of the bigotry. Hold on, what? It left everyone scratching their heads. Even if Alyssa was the one who made the ill-advised shot, why is she acting as though she was the victim now? She even went so far as to suggest that Clark should be in charge of his supporters since they were making her feel alienated. Even so, what does that mean? Some are returning to basketball, some are playing for the first time, and everyone is simply having fun. Caitlin is just wanting to play basketball. However, you attempt to seriously harm Caitlin Clark as you sit there. Furthermore, the WNBA was unable to do nothing except watch the mayhem happen. By September 28th, the league officially announced it. They were going to do a thorough investigation of Alyssa's overall behavioral pattern, not just the hit on Clark. When the league intervenes, you know the situation is severe. Sponsors were becoming uneasy, fans were demanding explanations, and the WNBA realized they couldn't ignore this issue. With all the pressure, Alyssa was forced into a corner. Her entire career was on the line when what began as a careless play in a game turned into something much more. I warned you all along that these folks would choose to lose large photographs. The fact that the stands are packed doesn't concern them. The eyeballs don't matter to them. They have no concerns whatsoever. They think you can tell who they are and that this is their league, or Wallet also felt the brunt of the fallout quickly. Sponsors who had previously considered her a top player began to back off. Her largest contract, a shoe endorsement with Nike that was scheduled to expire in 2025, is currently in jeopardy. According to insider sources, if this probe is unsuccessful, she may face a suspension of several games or, worst yet, the termination of her contract, all because she was unable to control her emotions and believed that putting herself in the victim role would get her out of danger. Now, the same question is being asked by all of the league's deliberations. Is there any hope left for Alyssa Thomas, or is this the end of the road for her?